Tony Hsieh, longtime CEO of Zappos, died this past week, and it was a gut punch. I knew him from afar, but now I realize a lot of what I pursued in my life came from following his path. He grew up in the Bay Area, and so did I. I'm 8 years younger. As a college junior at Stanford, my roommate and I were friends with his brother. One Saturday night, we made the drive from Stanford to Tony's San Francisco warehouse loft on Van Ness, above the restaurant and venture firm where the AMC Theater was. The year was 2001. The first Web 1.0 bubble had just begun its descent. He had sold his company and started an incubator venture capital firm, Venture Frogs. His San Francisco loft was beautiful and industrial. These are the funny things you remember. I remember exposed brick, a wide open vibe, twin turntables in the corner. No SF warehouse loft is complete without a DJ set. Years later, I founded a startup. I started a venture firm. And I even got those Technics 1200s, the DJ set that went in my San Francisco warehouse loft. In 2001, Tony's VC firm, Venture Frogs, funded Zappos, and Tony had already become the CEO. Today, let's remember him and talk about one of my favorite quotes from him. We want what other people want, and sometimes this thought really scares me. Growing up, I saw what Tony did. He had started his own company, Link Exchange. He sold that to Microsoft. So this is my favorite quote of his. I think it underscores and underpins what he meant to all of us trying to start companies. Here's the quote. Happiness is really just about 4 things: perceived control, perceived progress, connectedness, number and depth of your relationships, and vision/meaning. Being part of something bigger than yourself. Being a founder is actually a very interesting mix of all these things. You have, in one way, incredible control. It all falls on you. When I think about control, I think about Paul Graham's words that drove me to start a company, which was, you weren't meant to have a job. At a startup, as the founder, as the CEO, without a boss, you're in charge. And that double-edged sword means that at once it is all your responsibility and authority, but also nobody is coming to save you. And in this sense, your control is the maximum that you can sign up for. Second is progress. In terms of that, you're no longer beholden to the whims of organizations. Again, you don't have a power structure or boss to impress, but what you do have is complete exposure to the market and the customers themselves. So your progress can only come from delighting your customers, and this idea was deeply embedded in the culture of Zappos and everything that Tony did. Focus on progress translates into focus on customers. They are one and the same. You cannot progress without a great product or service. And that brings us to number 3. As a founder, as someone who's creating a new organization, creating a new product or service, you have to have extremely deep connectedness. You need to have lots of deep relationships that you can draw from to build your organization, which then builds the product and service. And there are really 2 phases to this: catching lightning in a bottle, then keeping it. In the first phase, you've got to pack that snowball down that will roll down the hill and get bigger and bigger on its own. The way to maximize this is A, becoming really, really good at a few key things like product, engineering, operations, or management, and then finding the highest performing teams that are full of other people who are that good. Then you'll build the network you need and call on them when the time is right, when you have that idea, when the time is right to build your first product. That co-founding team is how you will catch lightning in a bottle. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is often even harder and requires a different skill set entirely. This is where great communication, great management, and great leadership come into play. There's a big reason why successful founders look back so fondly on that first phase. The garage phase is actually very romantic if you look back on it. You knew everyone, you're in it to win it, you're trying to make $1 out of 15 cents. The latter phase gets harder and harder, particularly on your relationships. That's why Tony spent so much time thinking about holacracy. It was really pioneering work, a new way to manage large teams without hierarchy. And that was his try at making this phase a lot better. The effort and risk that he put in to try to innovate there remains absolutely an inspiration. At the end of the day, there has got to be a better way to organize these teams. That really reflects his core mission of delivering happiness. We know this, the absolute best teams absolutely nail it on connectedness. When a team works together and is deeply integrated, it can feel like one brain. So connectedness is so important and very key to the success of every founder. Tony left the best for last in his list of 4 things to create happiness. Meaning, something that is the core of what we all want to do. What's your calling? What is the mission? Can we build something together that is far bigger and far better than any given one of us as individuals? Why will you work on this problem harder than anyone else? Will you run through a brick wall to achieve this vision? These ideas, do they beckon you? This is a question I ask myself all the time. What am I doing with Initialized? If it's just about money and power, there are way more direct ways to do that. How can we as a firm, as a partnership, how do we build something that lasts beyond any of us? Can we be bigger than the sum of our parts and leave behind something like Harvard or Stanford? I hope so. Those are it. The keys to happiness. Simple, isn't it? Control, progress, connectedness, meaning. Do you have what it takes to be a founder? The reality is you don't know until you try. And you don't try until you see someone you look up to do it too. And maybe, just maybe, you can follow the breadcrumbs that they laid down before you. Thank you to Tony Hsieh for teaching us this path. As Rene Girard says, desire is mimetic, but that mimesis can sometimes still point you in the right direction. In Tony's words, meaning is being a part of something bigger than yourself. Thank you for teaching us the way to that path. Tony Hsieh, true founder for real. Rest in peace.